In this problem, we are asked to solve for y. To begin, we want to notice that each term on the left-hand side of this equation has a 4y squared in common. So we can factor out a 4y squared, and when we do this, we are left with a 6y squared plus y minus 2, and that all equals 0. Now we want to continue to factor this, so we are looking at the inside of the parentheses now, and we want to multiply this leading coefficient 6 times a negative 2, so we get a negative 12. And we're looking for factors of negative 12 that will add to this 1 term that is in front of the y, so we can rewrite that inside expression. So if we do this, the two factors of negative 12 that will accomplish this for us are a 4 and a negative 3. So let's rewrite the inside of this parentheses. Again, the 4y squared is still part of our overall expression, so we want to make sure we continue to include that. But inside the parentheses, we now have 6y squared plus 4y minus 3y. So notice we haven't changed the expression at all. This is still the same equation. We just rewrote it differently. So now we want to continue to factor inside of the parentheses using factor by grouping. So we'll have 6y squared plus 4y as our first grouping, then plus a negative 3y minus 2 as our second grouping. Now continuing with this, we want to factor out any common terms in each of these groupings. So in this first grouping, we have common factors of 2y, and when we factor out a 2y, we are left with 3y plus 2. And in this second grouping, we can factor out a negative 1, and when we do so, we also get a 3y plus 2. And that still equals 0. Now with the final step in factor by grouping, we have the quantity of 2y minus 1, which remember that those came from these terms that we factored out in the grouping. And our second grouping is that 3y plus 2 that each of those grouped pairs had in common. Now, to solve for y, we need to set each of these terms equal to 0, and so we will end up with 3 possible solutions for y. So first we have a 4y squared equals 0. So to solve, we divide by 4 on each side. So we have y squared equals 0 divided by 4, which is 0. And then we want to take the square root of each side, and we are left with y equals 0 for that first term. Now moving on to the second term, we have 2y minus 1 equals 0. So add 1 to each side. So 2y equals a positive 1. And divide by 2 on each side to get y by itself, and we have y equals 1/2. And finally, the last term is 3y plus 2 equals 0. So we subtract 2 from each side, and we have 3y equals a negative 2. And so we want to divide each side by 3, and we're left with a y equals negative 2/3. So our final answer is C, y equals 1/2, 0, and a negative 2/3.